All right, folks, very warm welcome to all of you. This is Soham. I'm one of the two founders of the program. Looks like people are still coming in. Let's give it a couple minutes. Um, let's see, it's 6:32 Pacific. Let's get going at about 6:34, 6:35. Yeah, and I'm assuming you are able to hear me. If you are, if a few of you could just maybe raise your hands or like just put it in chat just to confirm that you're able to hear me, that would be awesome. Okay, awesome. All right, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, everybody. Yeah. Excellent. So as you know, there are two places you can put your thoughts. Right. One is the chat, right, and the second is Q&A. You know, this Q&A thing, keep it for Q&A if you can. Yeah, sometimes people confuse the two. Sometimes people put questions on chat, and sometimes people put comments in Q&A. Uh, try and keep it separate. Right? Try and keep the questions as just questions. Okay. All right. Let's wait for a couple of minutes and be on the way. All right, folks, thank you very much for waiting. Looks like we have a full house, and there are people watching even on live stream, YouTube, and stuff as well. Excellent. Thank you for giving us your evening. Again, my name is Soham. I'm one of the two founders of the program, and I'm very excited to be here. My other co-founder is Ryan Vallis. Ryan unfortunately couldn't make it today, but that's entirely fine. He is with us in our thoughts. I don't know, maybe even he might be listening exactly, or his spies might be. Good. Again, thank you very much for coming in. Today we are going to discuss software career trends 2021. Yeah, and we are still in the holiday mood, and that's why you see a red cap. I hope all of you had a very good holiday season. Like Ryan likes to say, we all want to forget 2020. it's set a pretty low bar, and I'm sure most years will be better than that. We do want to forget 2020, but it's actually the year we should not forget. Right? This is a year we should not forget. I don't think we will ever forget it. Unfortunately, many of us lost our near and dear ones to this stupid virus, and also a lot of jobs got impacted and such. But obviously, the world is coming back out of it as well. Starting October, we are distinctly seeing things picking up. Right? I know the numbers are still small, but the trend is distinct, and it's very clear that the things are picking up. Now, I'm going to go through about 10 slides, right? And then take questions right, today. The feel free to put your questions in Q&A, right? And feel free to even upvote, right? Don't just blindly put a question. See if somebody has already asked a question you wanted answered, and upvote it. Right? When I take questions, I will take questions in the descending order of upvotes. Okay, right. So I'll take and so upvote the questions which you feel like you need the answers most, right? I'll go a little bit over time as well. If you have a lot more questions, right, than we anticipated and such, which usually happens. So there are a lot of people here, so feel free to do that. Feel free to ask questions. Very happy to answer any and all. This today, the next 10 slides are going to be software career trends 2021. The way we saw it, right? Who's we? We is in a Kickstart. As some of you know, we have been around for a long time. This is our 6th year in operation, 7th actually. And we have seen a lot. Right? We started when lead code was some 1500 problems, so 150 problems, and now it's 1500. And this we started when this algorithmic and interviewing thing was like a thing that only a couple of companies did, and now it has really taken over the world with storm. And so we have seen a lot of changes over the years, and we have witnessed a lot of changes in the interview processes. We've witnessed a lot of changes in how the software engineering career has evolved, right, as well. And when I say software engineering, I don't mean like the exact title software engineering, right? I mean people in the periphery, right, as well, right? That is actually one of the trends that is getting much more pronounced, right, as well. So anybody who writes code, right, people who write code as a good chunk of their daily life, right? So without further ado, let me go through some of the things that we are seeing in the market. Hope this will be useful as you're planning a career. Tech will still be the top place to work in 2021. Right? It has been the top place to work, right? And we are big fans of looking at stock markets, right? And not because we don't trade as such and such, but the value generated is often captured as a signal in the stock market, right? As you can see, Nasdaq, which is very tech heavy, right, has returned a lot more than anything else in the recent years, right? As you know that software is eating the world, right? That was one of the seminar articles published by Mark Anderson in 2011. If you have never read it, I think it is a paradigm shifting article. You should read it. So it's almost a decade that he had published it, or ask us if you don't find it, where he discusses how tech is going to take over and eat every single thing that we do today. Right? Like, for example, the world's largest marketing company is a tech company, right, today, which is Google. Obviously, yes, we think of large social networks, which being Facebook, but even marketing is actually Google. Right? The next generation of car makers are all tech companies. Right? Google is making cars, and so is Apple, so is Tesla. And we think of them as tech companies. We don't think of them as automotive companies. Right? And we all saw what happened with the Tesla stock run recently. So that trend is going to continue. Right? That trend is going to continue. You also notice one other thing, right? Tech has a very interesting advantage. The moment you start a tech company or a company today, right, you can go global. Right? And so all these companies that are coming out of the US and China and other places of the world, right, they are not going to be limited to their own countries. Right? customers are going to be all over the world. It's very easy to go all over the world, right, with it. And so that's a very, very interesting trend that will continue. It will strengthen. It will strengthen as you as in 2021. It will intensify simply because simply because of staying remote, right? Because you're remote, right, you're open to the whole world, right? And so people from outside the United States are open to the United States and vice versa, right? And so the big tech companies that have had that momentum are only going to go up, right, from here. So that's one. FANG will still hold the sway, right? Looking at S&P X FANG versus FANG, right? It is quite clear. Last few years, some of these companies have had they have cornered the markets very, very deeply. Right? FANG employers are also the employers of choice, right? And there is no secret why, right? They also pay extremely well. In many cases at IK, we have compensation double and triple, right, from the other places of the world, right, these days. And so if you're working at Cisco's and Oracle's of the world and Macy's of the world and such, while they are solid businesses, right, a good engineer, right, who wants to care about engineering craft, right, is gravitating to FANG companies today, right? And FANG, as you know, is an acronym, right? Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Google, and it was coined by somebody. Does anybody know who coined that acronym? Almost by accident, not quite by accident, but almost by accident. Who spoke that first? No googling, no Wikipedias. Yeah, if you could put it in the chat. Anybody know off the top? By any chance? Jim Cramer. Very good, Deepak. Very good, Pranav. Yes, Jim Cramer. It was Jim Cramer a few years ago, and that is a thing. No, so the returns on this are staggeringly high. If you follow my Twitter feed, I had um, I had found some analysis one day where if you simply take the revenue. If you simply take the revenue of one of these FANG companies and divide it by the number of employees, right, you will notice the number is staggeringly high, right? Staggeringly high. So it's like 1.5 million or something like that per employee, right? And obviously they give you offers of 300, 400, 500K. So it works out quite well for them, really, right? So that is not what other companies are able to do, right? That is not what other companies are able to do. There was a time when working for startups was very trendy, right? You say, wow, working for a startup, right? And these big companies saw that the talent was actually getting drained to startups, and they were like, how do we stay competent, right? And guess what they did? They just increased the compensation, right? We are at a point where even if you work for a startup, the startup succeeds, the kind of compensation that you have, right, at success of a startup, which is relatively rare, right, you will get the same compensation in a FANG company, right? Especially if you are a software engineer, right? Not other roles yet, but so as for software engineers and in the periphery, right, that is true. Where 9 out of 10 startups fail, right? The one that succeeds, right, succeeds in a certain way, and assume that it succeeds in a way that you want. Say it was a billion dollar exit, right? And you had like a 0.1% of the company, right? You would make 1 million, right? And you would have spent 10 years making 1 million out of your equity, right? And plus your compensation, which even if it is market, right? The FANG companies will give you $1 million equity like in like 4 years and 5 years, right? So it is not even a freaking comparison at this point. Right. So a good engineer simply doing some back of the envelope calculation, right, today it wants to go to FANG companies, right? And this will continue in 2021, potentially even more because of there is a flight to safety, right? As well, right? With the pandemic, people realize that small companies are not able to sustain, right? Not all of them are able to sustain. and so they are going to fly to bigger ones, right, as well. Obviously, the tech trends are also helping. Right? Think about deep learning. Right, deep learning could not have come out of any other company but one of the FANG companies. The amount of data required to come up with those insights. Some of you might remember the cat, right? The cat experiment that Anthony did with Google. There was no chance a Tom, Dick, and Harry company could have done this. Right? The kind of infrastructure, kind of brain power that is required to, then the patience that required to do something like that. So there was like lot of innovations in tech, right? A lot of similar innovations tech, which the smaller companies are only going to use, right, are going to come from the big ones, right? And so if you want to be a part of that, right, there is no other choice, right? Either you use the innovation or you are a part of the innovation, right? As a software engineer, that is a privilege that you have, right? And unfortunately, not in many other fields, but software engineering, yes. And obviously, cloud, right? Um, think about it, right? Today, when a company starts, they don't think about where do I host my servers. So your server in a startup is not hosted underneath your desk, right? Your server now is hosted with AWS or Azure or GCP, right? And do you see too many big cloud providers? You don't, right? That kind of investment is just not possible to make, right? Like you have three, you have potentially a bit of Oracle and a bit of Alibaba, right? That's really it. Right? Do you think many companies will come up with cloud offerings? Nah, right? They can't. They just can't. Right? So they so this is here to stay. So if you're still wondering startup versus a big company, startup versus a big company is solid for you. Right? The only reason to now join a startup is if you really connect with the mission. You really like the team. Right? You want to spend your life with these people in this problem is when you go to a startup. You don't go to a startup for monetary reasons. Those days are permanently gone and wiped out from the face of this earth. So 2021 is only going to bolster this trend. However, these companies may be getting actually too big. Right? Many of us don't pay attention to this news, right? And some of us pay too much, some of us pay or too little. There are really only two camps, right? There are some people who pay too much attention to these big companies being the talk of these companies being broken up, and there are other people who pay too little attention. I was in the too little attention camp, and then I was in the too much attention camp, and now I've come to the middle. But this is real, right? This is real. These companies have become very big. They may not show it like that, right? The legislature is not competent enough to understand their impact like that, but it is true. Those who understand it, right, they have massive power. Now, what is wrong with power, you might write? Isn't that meritocracy, right? If you can make a company big, let it be big. Could be, yes, could be. But it's an empire, right? And if you look at history, no empire has sustained in that sense, right? So other powers come in to narrow it down. I don't know how the history is going to play out, but this is a thing that is only going to get momentum in 2021. There is yet another thing that has happened very, very recently, just last week or early this week, which is also a harbinger of things to come. Does anybody know what happened? Something concretely happened related to one big company. Something concretely happened related to one big company. Does anybody know what happened? And that is a union. Very good, Sam. Yes, the Google union. Alibaba founder missing. Yes, but that's just political. But what happened, which is a defining seminal change for the years to come, is a union of employees at Google, right? It was a small attempt, but a very concrete attempt, right, to unionize. Right? And those of you who have studied the history of the United States know unions have massive power. Unions have massive voting powers. Unions have massive collective bargaining powers, right, as well. So watch out for those trends, if not for yourself, but for your kids, right, as well. The next 10 years, unionizing is going to become much more of a thing, right, in it. Obviously not 2021. We don't see 2021 being too affected by unions as such yet. the companies are going to oppose, and these companies have still have too much of a sway, and it's quite likely that they are going to just thwart the union attempts. But it is a thing, right? Watch out for it. I understand that you may not be thinking about these bigger trends from a government sort of perspective, but they are affecting your career, and they will be affecting your career very, very concretely as you go. They will be affecting your retirement concretely as you go, right? And until you are 40, you don't think about retirement. You are blessed, right? For it, I am over 40 now, and I do think about retirement, and so do all my friends, right? When you start thinking about retirement, these things play a big role, right? And we clearly see this happening in the next couple of decades. Maybe not 2021 right off the bat, but it is a thing, right? Just pay attention, keep it at the back of your mind. At the same time, some companies will begin to challenge FANG for top talent, and some of these have. Every single company here has has had has made an offer that has been better than FANG that we know of. Right? Every single company here, uh, it, they have either met the offers or been better. Right? Databricks and Snap are the two leading culprits, so to speak, in there. Right? They just comfortably beat those offers. Right? All right, now they don't do it all the time, right? Not as a matter of policy, right? All right. But if your interview performance has been solid, right, you will get an offer which is going to be super compelling. You would think 100 times about this. If you have a Google offer and a Databricks offer, you will quite likely think very seriously about Databricks, right? And we have had a more than one alum who has had that choice, and they've gone to Databricks, right? Fine. So I have made offers better than Google at Box when I was at Box. Right? So obviously a few years ago, but some of the same things still stand. Right? So that is also happening, right? Like these startups, like I said earlier, big companies have started to corner the market. Now, obviously, the startups are not going to sit idle, right? So they are now also trying to up their game, right? And obviously, we benefit, right? As software engineers, right? As consumers like that, we do benefit, um, and we should be benefiting. Like we should take advantage of that, right? So, but folks, again, doesn't happen for everybody. It happens, but it happens reliably when your interview performance has been very good, right? Doesn't happen otherwise. Many people don't realize this, but your interview performance is what actually sways your offer, right? Every level has a band, right? There's a lowest offer at the band and the highest offer at the band, right? The better the interview performance, the better it is towards the higher side, right? So it is not your number of years of experience or who you know, right? It is about what you've done in those 4, 5, 6, 7 hours, right? Through this. Okay. So that's the other thing. This we are looking forward to see more of this in 2021. Right? More and more of these startups waking up and saying that, damn, I need to get the talent also. I can't be losing it all the time to Google and Facebook and Apple. And you will see that. This unmistaken, right, will increasingly be part of a global talent pool. Right? PayPal recently announced that we will not make any hires in the Bay Area campus. Right? All the hires are going to be either in Austin or in India or other places around the world. Right? All right. So many companies have announced remote locations. Right? Some companies have even said that even if you are remote, we will give you Bay Area compensation. Right? That is relatively rare, but most companies are taking advantage of this geographic dispersion, right? So if you are in a different place, they can save a little bit of cost by giving you compensation, which is aligned to geography, right? If they can get away with it, why wouldn't they? Right. So, and you would get away with it, right? You would do that in their places as well, right? All right. In some places like Bangalore, India, what has happened is that has become a hotbed for foreign companies, right? Multinational companies to come and hire, and not just Bangalore, like several other places in India like that. And so the compensation there is getting higher, in fact, right? And the compensation in Bangalore and some of these tech hubs of India is getting closer to the Bay Area compensation because of competition from outside, right? Because the talent is concentrated in a few countries in that sense. So that's like a secondary trend, second order trend that has showed up. Right? The first trend is that companies are letting you work from anywhere. Companies are hiring from everywhere. They're getting the cost advantage of hiring. Um, and and because of that, right, your competition is also increased. Now you are competing. If you are in the Bay Area, you're not only competing with the person in the Bay Area, you're also competing with the person in Austin and in Tennessee, right, and in Australia, right, and such. And so so while your pool has also increased, and you could actually work at other places, right, but your competition has also increased. That's one part of the trend. The second part of the trend is in some of these tech hubs where the talent is concentrated, right? The salaries have gone up because companies are competing to hire from there. Right? All right. So is it like a mainstream thing yet, where are like all the companies trying to say that we will only go remote everywhere and all companies are going to be fully remote and all that? No, not yet. But is it distinctly better than before? It is, right? It is like distinctly better than before. Like there are announcements upon announcements by companies that you can be now permanently remote. So, or for a long time you can be remote. Right? Now, are there companies who believe in completely opposite? Yes, there are still companies who will not give you an offer if you're not in the Bay Area, because they believe that eventually we will all gather back into the Bay Area or wherever the headquarters are. There are companies like that. Right? So what you will notice as you go, not in 2021, but in like next 5-10 years, the world is going to get polarized, right? More polarized than what is today. On one end, one pole are going to be companies who are like fully remote, large companies fully remote, and in the other end are going to be large companies that are fully local, right? Fully on site. So you will have fully remote company as a choice, right? That choice was very feeble before 2020, but 2020 has accelerated that. In the next few years, that will become like a absolutely a thing. And before 2020, we could count remote companies on our fingertips, right? So Automatic is remote, or GitHub is remote, or like Zapier is remote. Like, but now, right, Twitter is going remote, right, for example. Like lots of these companies are going remote, and so it become like a choice, right, for you to do it. And we are looking forward to seeing that a lot more in 2021, right, as well. Okay. And like I said, obviously leads to significant competition for FANG roles, right? The SWE compensation in India has increased, and the flight to safety has also increased. Right? Just a summary of all the other things that I said earlier. Compensation, we feel, will sustain. For how long? We don't know, right? These ranges completely sustained for us in 2020, and we expect that they will sustain for us in 2021 as well. In 2020 also, we got our highest offer ever, right? 780 at Facebook. Obviously it was a very highly contested candidate and such. But we don't know what is going to happen in 2021. Right? We anticipate that it is going to remain the same. It's not like they're going to fall or any of that. We may not see massive increases because the talent pool has increased, right? but we don't see it going down or any of that. Obviously, slightly inching up is my best guess at this point, but we will see. When we meet again next year, I'll be able to tell you. Right. All right. There are like interesting market forces. Right? Newer companies are putting pressure on FANG, and now FANG companies also have global talent pool available that they can form teams with and such. And so we are all waiting to see what's going to happen on this, but current guess is that it's going to be fine. It's not going to go down. Salaries are going to continue to increase. This is an interesting one, right? The SWE role is dead now, right? Actually, it has been dead for some time, but we saw this much more pronounced in 2020. We expect this to be very, very clear in 2021. Right? Everyone is just a specialist now, right? The way if you remember, for those who are old enough to remember, there were doctors before, right? And you just like general practitioners before, and that concept has almost evaporated now, right? The doctors all like specialists. Right? Like you talk about a doctor to say a postgraduate in internal medicine, for example, or gynecology, or like dermatology, radiology, so like every person in medicine, whoever goes into medicine, like wants to specialize today, right? Wasn't the case like even just 20 years ago, 10 years ago or so. Now that is what software engineering has become, right? Now, ML engineer is a very different from a cloud engineer, right? Very different from an SRE, very different from a data engineer, right? That the advertising of these roles by the companies, JDs are going to be very different, right? And we are already seeing this. Like this is going to be much more stable as we go in 2021. The training process is different, right? Now the bachelor's degrees that are given out are getting differentiated, right? Your bachelor's in MLAI versus bachelor's in data engineering and such, right? So like even the training right out of high school is going to be like differentiated, right? So so you will see that very different, and interview process is also going to be like very differentiated, and obviously interview Kickstart is going to adapt to that as well, right? But that's a very concrete trend. When if you are not a software engineer, you want to become a software engineer, right? You shouldn't just say I want to become a software engineer. You should say I want to become a data engineer, or become an ML engineer, or a cloud engineer, or become SRE. Like you should add that to your goal, right? A front-end engineer, a full-stack engineer. Right? So always think of yourself as that. Right? So much more pronounced in 2021. CS degree is becoming less important. I think this is fairly obvious to people in the field. Right? People around us, many of them didn't have a degree in CS. There is a no code movement as well, like to create tools such that coding is not required. Right? As such, like if you think about it, they are on the same spectrum of things, right? Coding is becoming a skill which is very pervasive, right? My kids are learning coding in school, and as they grow, it's going to be as common as English was to them, right? Like they will be able to like fire up Excel and do some quick macros. They'll be able to write quick Python scripts for stuff. So this degree, CS degree, not being super important, or CS degree becoming differentiated in a different way. We are expecting that to happen in 2021, right? Quite a bit. So the CS degree, the way it is likely not going to continue, right? And like not for too long. And I'm not saying 2021 it's all going to be dead, no. But you will see very interesting twists, right, on it. Like I said, you will see interesting specialization twists on it. Right? You will see degrees getting shorter. You will see less people taking degrees like that, and so like these things are going to happen. You'll see payment plans coming afterwards, like more job orientation versus not job orientation. Like your degrees going to be like separate like that. Some degrees will be job oriented, some degrees will not be job oriented. Right? Lot of education and companies, education and professional work is going to be combined. Like for example, degrees are going to come from Amazon, right? For example, so like I'm not saying Amazon is going to start a college or whatnot. I'm saying that Amazon is going to collaborate with a whole bunch of colleges, right? And seep their tools and by way of donations and technology and all of that, and the companies will actually produce graduates which are aligned to Amazon, for example. Right? Some of those things are you're going to see. And obviously Google made a clear announcement even before it. So you expect to see a lot more of that in 2021. Right? And the interview process. Right? We see some concrete changes in the interview process coming up in 2021 as well. Remote is here to stay. As vaccines percolate the society, certainly it's going to reduce, but it is not going to go down to what it was before. Right? Earlier, remote interviews were practically unheard of. Now still a great chunk of interviews are going to still remain remote, right? Fully remote, right? So expect it to stay. And because of that, you have this other interesting requirement. When you are taking an interview remotely, you're expected to produce working code and versus on a whiteboard. Right? Many people tend to hate whiteboard, but they forget that whiteboard lets you slip some of these mistakes, right? Like whiteboard lets you focus on the logic versus on syntax, right? But now what's going to happen is that you'll be expected to write working code in the same amount of time, right? On an online tool, right? So So that has obviously happened. That has started in 2020, right? And it's going to continue in 2021 as well. And the preparation for that is slightly different than just writing some stuff on whiteboard. Right? Now, remember, pseudocode was never allowed at good companies. So I'm not so it's not a comparison between pseudocode and syntax, like exact language syntax. It is the difference between focusing on the logic versus focusing on actual code working. We're distinctly seeing Python taking over Java in terms of interviews, right? And this is not a jab on Java or any of that. Java is still a first-class language, fine language, and it's not going away anywhere. But when it comes to interviews, Python seems to be a bit easier, right? And especially for people who have never done, who come from like low-level languages, say C, for example, they need to pick up a higher-level language than Python. Or people who come from the periphery of software engineering into software engineering, they start with Python as well. So that is a distinct trend, right? Java still continues to be a first-class language. So if you are coding in Java, I'm not saying you should jump to Python. No, please don't do that. Right? If you have 3, 4, 5, 10 years of experience in Java, there's no way in hell you'll be as good in Python any quickly. So just keep honing your Java skills. Right? That's entirely fine. But as a group of students, right, we see Python distinctly increasing. Right? Even today, Java is more than Python in terms of number of students taking it, but Python, the growth is higher in Python. The other interesting trend, we are seeing coding getting into interviews of non-engineers, people who wouldn't identify themselves as engineers, but they will still getting coding questions at an extreme. A marketing analyst role, right, now needs some coding, as an example. Certainly, the peripheral roles need coding. Like say you are in technical support role, right? Some of that needs coding. Solutions engineering needs coding. Cloud engineering needs some coding, but that is somewhat understandable still. But marketing analyst roles, right, need coding. So this coding thing, like I said earlier, is creeping practically everywhere. All right. And because of that, what has happened, right? Because of that, what has happened is that there is an interesting kind of balance that is coming in software engineering and interviews. Two distinct things are happening. One is that the coding questions for software engineers are getting harder. Coding questions for software engineers are getting harder because now coding is a pervasive thing, right? It's easier to prepare for and stuff like that. But software engineers are software engineers, right? And so good companies, software engineers, especially senior software engineering role like L4, L5, L6, right? The coding questions are getting harder. They are not increasing in number. The ones that are there in the interview panel are just inching up. Right? The rest of it is design and domain. Right? There was a scare at one point that the design and domain work is going to stop. Right? Or like most of it is going to be just algorithms, but that has stopped. Right? The number of coding questions in the interviews have reduced, right? Either reduced or stayed same. The rest of it has been now filled by the design and the domain stuff. Right? So if you are a data engineer, you not only have to always have to do coding, right? You will be asked algorithmic questions, but there will be an equal emphasis on designing data systems and equal emphasis on just understanding of systems, right? So that is aligned with the trend that I discussed earlier, where the SWE role is dead and it's all specializations now. Right? But your specialization is important in the interviews at good companies, right? I'm not talking about the other random ass companies. I'm talking about the good ones that I talked about earlier at the onset, like FANG plus kind of companies. So when you now prepare for interviews, you have to not only prepare for coding, you have to prepare for systems design, right? And just large scale web systems design. Right? You have to prepare for your domain and obviously your soft skills. Right? Many companies have woken up to soft skills also. There was a time when engineers were considered just nerdy people, and it didn't matter what they said and how they said. Now it does matter, right? More and more companies are waking up to the fact that behavioral challenges are not accepted. Right? So all four things you have to pay attention to in an interview process. Now, Another nuance in here, right, is that even if you are an embedded software engineer, right, or someone who's not dealing with web systems every day, you still now need the knowledge of web systems in an interview. Right? You need to understand how this entire web system works. Right? Fine. So you may be working on a hardware controller, right? Like a hard disk controller, for example. It doesn't matter. You are expected to understand how the web system works because that is the core of the product. All right. So that's how the interview has become more balanced. Right? Coding, design, domain, and soft skills. Right, four things. And coding for SWE roles is getting harder. So that's what we have distinctly seen in 2020. And some companies have done innovative techniques, right, in 2020, and they will and we expect to fully expect to see some innovative interview techniques, right? And like for example, a box for quite some time actually they give you a laptop and they give you an hour and a half to code something, right, on it right then, and then they give you a design discussion for it. Or if you are a very senior engineer, then there is like a group discussion of one of the projects that you might have done in the past. Or let's say a Stripe gives you a debugging exercise, right? And some companies still do some pair programming. Pair programming was a thing at one point. There was like, wow, everybody's going to start doing it. That has died down, but still some like Square, for example, again gives you pair programming exercise, right? Stripe gives you, like I said, the debugging exercise. Slack needs you to make something out of their API, right? So we know some of these things, and it is interesting to see how these companies are trying to innovate in the interview process, right, as well. And we fully expect to see that coming in 2021, right, as well. Take home assignments, right, have become now mainstream as well, right? Many companies, especially startups, give you take home assignments too, although the your preparation doesn't change, right? The take home assignments are the preparation for a take home assignment is not very different from preparation for an on-site interview or a phone screen. Your preparation still remains the same, whichever the techniques of interviewing that they use, right? You might just need a little bit of practice, warm up on it, a mock interview or so, and that's the end of it. So but we are seeing that. Right? So these are some of the things we are seeing in the interview process. Right? Companies at large follow FANG and embrace interview prep. Right? It's unfortunate trend, I think, where many companies, small companies, look at FANG companies and say, look, they interview like that and they are successful. I should interview like that. Right? They forget that there are other reasons of why the interview process at FANG exists the way it exists. Right? But what do they know? And sometimes these startups companies are started by people who are working at FANG. They have not known a different interview process at all, right? And so they will just do it. So that has been happening for a while. It's going to continue in 2021. Okay, so in summary, right? 10 trends I've identified. Tech will still be the top place to work in 2021, right? Go and read Mark Anderson's article. It's called "Software is Eating the World." Then there is another one from not from Mark, but I'm forgetting the name. It's called "Mobile is Eating the World." Benedict Evans. They both work for Andreessen Horowitz, and that is also very good. FANG will still hold sway. As you know, a large percentage of earnings, right, large percentage of GDP and earnings are going to FANG. US economy is a $15 trillion economy, right? And the FANG companies together are closing into a $1 trillion of that, right? And I'm talking revenue, not valuation. Valuation is a completely different game. But they may be getting too big as well. So just watch out in 2021, 2022 from a corner of your eye. It's not going to affect your career right off the bat, but it may affect it eventually, your careers eventually. Some companies will begin to challenge FANG for top talent. Startups will rise again, like some startups will rise again. And highly funded startups will rise again because now they have to beat the compensation offers of FANG companies. Engineers will increasingly be part of a global talent pool, right? How this trend exactly plays out, time will only tell. So far, it feels like it is here to stay, and there's going to be significant competition globally as well as obviously availability, right? Globally. Compensation will sustain, but for how long we can't tell. I think it depends on how this remote trend plays out. We are going to wait and watch for the next couple of years. We fully expect it to stay and increase, though. There's no reason for it to go down. The SWE role is dead. Everyone is a specialist. Think of yourself as a certain specialist. Right? Always, even if you want to get into SWE, think of as a specialist. CS degrees will become less important for SWE roles. Probably a better way to say this is that education is going to see very interesting changes. You'll see specialization coming early. You will see more companies getting influencing education, right? You will see degrees getting shorter and split up and such, right? You will see some things becoming more or less important. You'll see degrees, some are job oriented, some are not job oriented. Like they're going to be again polarized, right? The world is going to get more and more polarized as we go in practically every dimension. Degrees are also one, and the 2020 interview process will be different from the past, right? Like I said, it has become much more balanced already, and we are going to see that increase in balance as time goes. We're going to see some innovative interview techniques as well. Remote interviews are here to stay. Also, if any of you wants to understand how to handle remote interviews better, we have published a blog post which is actually very good. It is available on our blog. It's very detailed. We have thought about a lot of little things, like for example, turn off a VPN connection and stuff, and like different types of setups that you can use. So feel free to latch onto that if it hopefully will be useful. So yeah, that's about it, folks. And have a wonderful 2021. I think 2020 was, like I said, was a great year in many respects. We are never going to forget it, and hopefully 2021 will bring a lot of peace around. See, I'm very happy to now take questions. Please put your questions in the Q&A box, right? Not in the chat. If you can, that would be awesome. Let's see. And before you put your questions, let's see. Just please try and upvote, right, the questions so that I know which ones to take first, right? Okay. It is 7:19 Pacific. Let's give it a couple of minutes. I'll wait for a couple of minutes for you to all upvote the questions, and then I'll start taking them. All right, folks, looks like there are some upvotes here. Let's get going. All right, first question from Swati. I couldn't find any IQ questions related to engineering leadership type interviews other than optional guidance session signups. As something could accommodate more of a session specific. Interested? Could you talk a little bit about what to expect in types of men? Swati, yes. So we are working on it as we speak. Very soon you will see an announcement for it. but realize that the sessions are going to be for people who are already engineering managers, right? There isn't a way for anybody, much less us, to take a person who is not an engineering manager and just make them a manager, right, for it. Like that's not how it works. But for if you are an engineering manager, yes, you'll get some sessions, right, for it as well, and we are working on it as we speak. I hope that helps. Okay. Companies are moving towards take-home assignments as a lead could have only for FANG companies. Vivek, so like I said, the preparation for take-home assignments is about the same. Not all take-home assignments are just project-based, right? And not all types of roles cater to take-home assignments. Like very difficult to do this in embedded systems roles. Like in front end, yes, you could do it. You could just make a website or something like that. But otherwise not. And even after you do the take-home assignments, you go on site. Like most of these companies are going to ask you algorithmic questions, and so the preparation unfortunately remains the same. Right? That's it. So interview prep only for FANG companies? No. Right? In fact, like I said, it's the opposite. Like even manual QA roles at tier 2 companies ask algorithmic questions today. It's quite bizarre. I don't agree with it, but that's the stupidity that we are living with. Right. So interview prep is here to stay and should be done in a generic way, right? When you're looking for a job, you're not just targeting one company, right, in that sense. So you're not targeting just one company in that sense, and because you're targeting multiple companies, right? And if you jot down what each company is asking, right, you will notice and you cut across, you realize that you need to prepare for algorithmic interviews, you prepare for design, you need to prepare for your domain and your soft skills. That's generally the idea. I hope that helps. How do you survive in engineering role after gaining 10-15 years of experience in FANG? Other companies, Multicons mentioned here. It is very hard to keep up with young engineers and technology trends. It is very hard to keep up with young engineers and technology trends. Yes, no, I empathize with you. It is not easy. For sure, it is not easy. But every age or every section of a career comes with its own trade-offs. Comes with its own pros and cons. Like the more senior you are, the better network you have, for example, right? The more savings you have, right? For example. So the job search process for you, right, is relatively easier also, right? Compared to the anxiety is relatively less. You will find a job because there are many more people who know you than a fresh grad coming out of college, right? For it. So and also or I should say us, right? I'm in the same boat. The other thing is that it is very easy to become complacent, right? Very easy to become complacent. This thing about not keeping up with young engineering technology trends has been around for ages, right? This is nothing new with FANG or nothing new with software, right? Age has its effects unless you recognize it early and you keep up with it, right? At Box, for example, we had hired 2 engineers in their 60s, right? One of them, and both of them went through the same damn interview process, and they impressed us with their coding skill in their 60s, right? They answered algorithmic questions, right? They answered design questions. They were good with soft skills, right? And both of them were grandparents, right? And you ask them how did they manage to do it, and they're like, so we just kept up with life. Right. You just have to keep up with technology trends, right? I understand that it is difficult to do, but those who can keep up never worry about it, right? Never worry about it. And the other advantage, right, with seniority is that if you want to branch out of coding roles, you can, because you have the savings to do this, right? Like you want to become an entrepreneur, you have the savings to do it. Right? You want to become either a people manager, process manager, project manager, program manager, you can do that. Now you have the experience to do that. You have the sort of the tech stack experience to do that. You have the cultural experience to do that. You have the political experience to do that, right? Which is not the case for fresh grads, right? So survival can happen in different ways, right? The best survival happens by just keeping up with stuff. And I've seen this with my eyes, and I'm sure many of you have as well. That's one. Second way of surviving is to move out of that into more peripheral kind of roles, right? Which is only you can do that, right? And the third way of surviving, right, is really just becoming entrepreneur, right? So some of these things are not really available to young engineers as such, right? For it. So and obviously it is, I'm not saying it's an easy choice. I mean, it's a difficult choice to see, like, what do I do? Do I stay here and just keep up with it? Do I move out? Do I become an entrepreneur, right? What do I do? I mean, that's a that's a difficult choice, and that needs to be done after careful consideration and many discussions with your mentors and reflection and such. But those are the three paths. Right? So I hope that helps a little bit. Sorry, no easy answers. We are very big fans of being straightforward, though. Right? Straight talk. I hope that's appreciated. What are your thoughts on management career paths of senior engineer? Are there alternate paths of senior engineer that involve blend of hands-on and hands-on management? Mukul, I mean, like I said just before this, management career path is very good. It's not for everybody. Right? If you are thinking of going into management and hoping that it's going to ease your life, it never happens like that. Right? Now you are responsible for an entire team, not just for yourself. Right? Right? So, are there alternatives to that? Keep up with it. Keep up with the trends and just continue to grow in your career. Right? You from a senior engineer to a staff engineer to senior staff to principal to senior principal. I mean, that just you can. Right? You can also go work at a less pressure environment. Right? Obviously, you'll get paid less also, but there are less pressure companies with less pressure environments where you can rest and rest. Right? Also, that's also the other trend. Right? If you want to keep up your compensation and your influence and you want it easy, that's not going to happen. That's You need to be lucky for that, and luck is not strategy in my head. But I'm not saying you are asking for it, but if anybody is asking for it, that's unlikely to happen. But you can always go work at companies that just value for who you are, and they just you can just stay there for a longer time for it without the pressure to go up. Right? Every company has something called a terminal level as well, where beyond that you are not forced to go up. Right? Usually L5 senior engineer, you can stay senior engineer all your life as long as you keep meeting expectations. You're generally fine until the business unit does well, obviously. But so you don't worry about promotions, and that's like you can stay steady. I'm not sure if you are looking for looking for this, but that's an option, right, to do. Management career path, you should consider it carefully. You should try it. There are things like TLM, or tech lead manager kind of role, where you try it for 6 months and see if you like it. Right? If they like it, you like it. The people under you like it, and then you can come back. All right. So that's the other thing you could do. Right? Many companies provide that. If your company doesn't have a formal role, you can always talk to the managers and say, I would like to try it for 6 months. Right? Try that. So I hope that helps. If not, let me know. Do you see value in cloud certifications, AWS or GCP? Yeah, there has always been some value in the certification stage. It's something that helps you get your foot into the door, in terms of helps you get an interview. Right? But after that, obviously, it's on your skills. Right? So that certification will also just help you. It's also certification is also a good way to just get that skill in a structured way. Right? And that's the end of it. Is it a panacea? No. Right? Is it completely useless? No. Right? So it helps you get into it adds a little bit, right, in your resume to say, oh yeah, this person is AWS certified, and so I can expect that they know the basics at least. Right? They may not know how we use it and how we can optimize for things, but they know the basics. I don't have to tell them. I don't have to teach them EC2. I don't have to spend the time having them figuring figuring out S3 versus EC2, and they are different things. And so that's the value of it. Right? And there was a time when some companies said it's a panacea, but it has never been a panacea. Right? So you have to explicitly prepare for interview. Getting interviews becomes a bit easier. I hope that helps. How is the work-life balance for the role Facebook? Work-life balance depends on your manager. Right? Like 80% of it is on your manager, and the rest of it is in your own confidence. Right? I've seen plenty of engineers with 2-3 kids, right, coming at 8 in the morning, leaving at 5, and still getting promoted. Right? So it's up to you in that sense, and their manager. Right? If their manager believes that 8 to 5 is not how they should be working, they should be working more, then they can make a life hell. Right? But otherwise, even at Amazon, which is not very well known for the work-life balance, there are many teams where the work-life balance is excellent. Right? Obviously, those stories don't come out. Right? Same thing at Google and Facebook. Same thing at many other companies. Right? So, it has nothing to do with the compensation in that sense. Okay, so I know it makes for a nicely intellectual question, but the reality is that it is just dependent on your immediate manager or that management chain. Right? Even if your immediate manager believes that you are fine, that if their manager doesn't believe it, there's going to be pressure on your manager and hence on you. So that management chain usually one or two levels, not too far, and and your own confidence. Right? You could say I'll finish this in 8 hours, 9 hours. Right? If I don't finish it, fire me. Right? Like that kind of confidence, both of that gets together. Right? Um, I'm looking for director role. Want to know how this course will help me. So, sorry, I don't know what your name is. You're an anonymous attendee. Um, Feel free to reach out to us. Like there are many people who in directorial role who come to the program. Very happy to help. In the directorial roles, I'll at least give you the punchline. The coding is less important, but what is more important is design, your domain, and your soft skills, and we'll obviously help you with all of them. Just reach out to us. Just attend one of the webinars that we do. We do 3 a week or more a week now, and you can attend one of them, or you can talk to us directly as well. Just drop us a note. There's an email address on the website, or you can sign up and such. Is AWS an upcoming hot skill? What are other hot skills and professions? So AWS is a hot skill. You could say it's a hot skill. Sure, all the cloud provision is generally hot, whether it's GCP or Azure or Alibaba or Oracle and such. ML is obviously the other thing. Right? There are a lot of openings for ML. Not good engineers, not enough good engineers. There are many people with academic skills in ML, but not like real world projects as many. And that's the other one that you could try. The Obviously data engineering is the other one, right? As well, there are a lot of data engineers. Data engineering is still a very confused role, fairly like ML, um, but. But handling data systems, whichever part it is, whether you're in the infrastructure side, whether you're in the analysis side, whichever tool it is, also still quite hot. And data science is also quite hot. But data science is a lot of statistics and ML as well. That is also quite hot. And those are the top ones in terms of being hot. I hope this will focus the trend of software career broadest and when you will share new grad. You will share thought for new grad experience as well as experience. Yeah, Avinash, I hope that helped. Like we didn't break it down into new grad versus experienced software engineer, but it applies to everybody. Right? New grad life these days is much harder. Right? In some sense, there's a lot of competition and fewer jobs to go around, but things will get better. 2021, you will see job markets bounce back. Right? Like I said, starting October has always been better, and that is also why it is important to go to good college. If you're thinking about your next degree, right, try and think of a college which has a stronger brand value. Right? That will also help. And then again, the world is going to get more polarized. Like I said, there's going to be a group of colleges with a strong brand value, and there's going to be a group of colleges which don't care about the brand. Right. All right. So I hope that helped a little bit. Similar to someone's, how does IK program prefer senior position, someone 15 perhaps focus on design type? Yes, Jack, like we have an elaborate program on design, right, on soft skills, on algorithms and such, and we connect you for the domain part. We connect you with mentors who help you with specific domain stuff. If you're interested in the programs, I mean, this isn't the time to explain how the whole program works and all that. I mean, it takes a while. Just reach out to us through the website, right? Just drop in a lead, attend one of our webinars, and or talk to someone. We're happy to chat. But it is very routine for senior positions to come. Like vast majority of people coming to Interview Kickstart are experienced engineers. The programs are designed for working professionals. Programs assume that you have all sorts of distractions in life. Programs assume that you're a couple years out of college and such. Fresh grads also come, it's relatively less, but like a lot of people in 10, 15, 20, 25 years experience come to. Yeah. What do you recommend engineers coming in from C or embedded? Better to do Java, Python, stick to C. Praveen, there are a couple ways of handling this. I've seen people who become very fluent at C, right? And so they don't need to handle Java, Python. And when you become very fluent at C, the way you do it is that you don't code all the data structures that are not available, but you remember their function signature. So when you're writing this code, you assume that You create a function signature which is accurate and say, I'm going to implement this later in an interview, and then you finish implementing the main code. And then only when the interviewer asks you to implement that hash table or a heap or whatnot it is, then you go ahead and implement it. Now that becomes very difficult in a remote interview though, because they expect working code. So, and in a remote interviews, people with C are at a disadvantage. But what you could also do is that you could just create a library of functions and just use that library of functions in an interview. You could say, look, I have created this library of functions to use before because I'm using C, and I hope that's okay. Like 9 out of 10 people are actually going to be okay with that. They understand that. Right? So I hope that helps. That's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is just pick up Python. But if you've done C for like 5 years or 10 years or something like that, picking up a new language, I mean, it's possible and all that. You may not become as fluent in it. Right? So you have to give it the due time it takes for it to learn Python as well. But it is entirely possible to do it with C. Like just create a library of functions and copy paste it, ask permission of the interviewer first, and they'll be fine. Yeah. How will immigration H1B impact on the hiring process? Shreyas, hopefully the next year will this year I should say 2021 will be better in terms of immigration. How will it impact? Nobody really knows yet, but so far we haven't seen a massive impact, right, in that sense. There was a lot of scare, but many of those scary things did not actually pan out, right? And the reason is that the companies, right, are pro H1B, right? And so as long as companies are pro H1B, government is unlikely to make too many drastic changes to it. Right? So it still remains to be seen, but I don't expect any drastic changes to be coming in. Like I don't expect companies to say we are no longer expecting any no longer hiring anybody who needs an H1B renewal, right? And we are not hiring anybody who needs a green card. And so that's not going to happen, and we don't see that. We haven't seen that yet. So companies will continue to respect H1B. It's a little bit of a cost more for them, but then they'll continue to bear, right, that also. What thoughts on companies like Multicon, Snap, blah, 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 in light of pandemic? Good chance to join. Yeah, sure. I mean, these are all pretty good companies. Why wouldn't you join them? They're strong engineering teams, and you will learn a lot. But they will continue to do well. Like Snap will continue to do well. So will Airbnb, Pinterest, Uber, Lyft. All of them will continue to do well. Don't. Also, keep your goals very clear. Depending on how far you are in your career, keep those goals quite clear, right, about it. To say, okay, yes, this is what I want to get out of it, right? So you should go to a company to learn engineering, right? Like solid engineering skills is what you want to learn, and then you can put them to use to other places in your own companies and such. Right? Compensation they are going to give you as long as they're around. They're going to continue to give you compensation. Don't worry about them shutting down, right? Like too many engineers worry about companies shutting down. I understand. I mean, I've had that experience in my life as well when I was fairly young. But when the company shut down, like the world comes to help you, right? And your energy also doubles to just find something. You will find something else. If you have been at Airbnb, there's no way in hell you'll not find another job, right? Or even Snap, Pinterest, Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, you will find another job. Don't worry about companies staying, not staying, and all that. They will make you good offers because otherwise they will not be able to hire you. They have good engineering systems that you can learn from, and you're not worried about them going away, right? What's the no harm, right? So, what software roles do you expect to be in demand if you can rank them? So I did that earlier, right? Ranking is difficult, but ML, data engineering, data science, which is not really software. That's 3, and the cloud stuff, right? These 4 will be good. East Coast, check. We accommodate people from all time zones. Yeah, please feel free to ask these questions as well to the program advisors who you talk to. Right. Our classes are on Sunday morning. Right? So all time zones in the US can easily attend. Data engineers, yes, Krishna. We have specific things for data engineers as well. Certainly, we do. Is there no value for getting a degree to understand complex concepts in OS distributed systems, compilers? um, uh, no, there is value. There is value, but there is no value in just academic understanding anymore, right? Academic understanding is very far from what companies have done it. Um, think about file systems. Right? There is one thing to learn a file system in college, another thing to understand GFS. Right? The innovation in file systems in companies is so far and deep now compared to academia that while you understand, the academia can only just tell you the concepts, right, of file system. Right? A proper working file system at scale, a company will tell you what it works. Right? So is there no value? No, there is some value in it, but is it full value like it was 10 years ago? No, not anymore. Good question. Very good question, though. Where can I find program cost and duration for it? Again, just go to the website, fill out the lead, right, fill out the form, and go through the process. We'll be very happy to discuss everything as well. Please do. Most welcome. Can you share the link? It's interviewkickstart.com/blog, or like blog.interviewkickstart.com, and you'll see the remote interview blog. And I request operations to put that link in chat as well, if you could. Okay. How important are language details of language, specifically multi-threading, garbage collection, etc. for an interview? Surprisingly, I had these type of questions a few years after I learned, I forgot. So, Oleg, depending on the role you're interviewing for, right? If you're a front-end engineer, yeah, unlikely, right? Mobile engineer, yes, mobile, there's a lot of multi-threading on the device. Back-end engineer, yes, likely. So, but why not brush it up regardless, right? Like, it'll help you just in your daily work, right? Like knowing garbage collection, how it works, will help you write more memory efficient code in your daily work, right, as well. So is it important? See, interviews are not standardized tests, right? There isn't a syllabus for it, right, that companies follow and such. You just have to. The reason we are able to pull off courses is because we continuously scan and understand what's asked, what's not asked, and something is asked everywhere, right, in that sense. And so it is good to just learn on itself, by itself, right, on it. So just learn it because you like it. Right? Learn because you like it. Like multi-threading is a thing that every software engineer should just know. Right? And I'm not saying that you don't want to do it. I'm saying that while these are not mainstream things in software engineering, but you should learn it regardless. So I hope that helps. I know I haven't answered it precisely, but there isn't a precise answer to that. Right? Some engineers just believing asking these questions, some don't. Right? And so we are better suited just learning them for our own sake. Are not unions good for developers? That's a debate. Anonymous attendee. That's a debate. Good unions can be good or bad. You can see the history of unions. There is a lot to be read about history of unions in the United States as well. But and there is a lot. It's a very complex topic. Right? Unions are very, very well understood, and it's a very complex topic. I mean, obviously, I won't go into the details right now. Right? It's a little bit off topic, but Google for it, understand that, right? Understand sort of the pros and cons of unions and such. I think it'll give you a good idea. USSV is dead. So as a person getting into the field, should I focus solely on one specialization? Learn SWE. So see, the thing is, you definitely should do specialization, right? There's a common core of SWE skills, but what I'm saying is that don't stop there, right? That's just that knowing that common core of knowing a programming language is not sufficient today, and you have to know more than a programming language. There was many years where just knowing a programming language is sufficient. Okay. Which language will be best to pick for data structures and algorithms? I'm struggling to decide between Java and JavaScript. Which one to go with? Being graduate student who has previous experience in data engineer roles wants to move to SE role. So, listen, if you want to move to a software development role, pick Java over JavaScript, right? Not JavaScript. JavaScript is only for front end. Right? So in that particular case, Java is better. I hope this helps. What kind of Python packages are commonly referred to in interviews? That's very question too specific, but like I said, there isn't like the companies don't have a list of Python packages. Only ask questions from this. Right? It's like a date. Think of interviewing as a date. Right? In a date, you don't have specific questions you go with, and like you pull up and say, okay, question number 1, question number 2, right? It's not like I'm going to ask you questions only 3 things. Please prepare before you come on the date, right? So it's not like that. You just have to do the popular ones, right? And you have to do the ones that you do for your work, right? Like you are in some sort of data science and ML role, and you don't know NumPy. That's not going to fly, right, for it. So just mostly obvious, right? Do you suggest having existing knowledge of all data structures? No, you don't need existing knowledge of all data structures. You do need to know how to code though before attending IK. Right? The data structures knowledge you will pick up. You do 1 or 2 problems, you'll pick up. Like, it's not a problem. Okay. What are the impacts of privacy and regulations on FANG in 2021? And again, very elaborate question. And I think we are possibly way over time on this. It's a very elaborate question. I think again it's a debate. Right? Like Google for it, you will understand. The regulations have very very massive impact. Right? The more regulations you have, the more your hands are tied as a business. Right? And so if there are regulations in compensation which might come because of unions, right, then you can't differentiate your offers, right? You have a really good engineer, or someone who's not really good, you have to pay the same. And stuff like that will start to happen. Privacy it remains to be played out, right? In some ways, privacy is good. Some ways, not having privacy is also good. Like it's a long debate. I hope that helps a little bit. Can IK alums retake the updated course in the future? Yes, please. We're most welcome. Most welcome. And is Python the default language for ML engineers? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Okay, you said companies are looking for specialist roles. How to do domain change if you are a specialist in other domain and be specialist domain from embedded systems to ML? How do you do domain change, right? If you are a software engineer, how do you do domain change from one type to the other type? You should learn the second type, right? You have to take a course in ML engineering. You have to do some projects in it, right? You do immerse in it and say, okay, this is how I learn it. And in an ideal world, you would combine it with making a move to the ML team within the same company, right? Or you moonlight for that team to say, hey, I'm trying to switch to ML. I'm taking these courses. Do you have any bugs I can fix? Can I participate in discussions as just a mute participant? Right? Or just I would love to help. And so depending on the credibility that you're built in the company, every manager will allow that, right? For it. So that would be a great way of doing it. Then you make a switch to the ML team, and there you are there, and then you switch the company. Don't try and switch domain and the company together. It becomes difficult. Yeah, I hope that helps. Is the target person for this course people that already have interviews? What if applying is not working out? And so we are not a placement agency, right, in that sense. But if you do well in the program, we'll be very happy to connect you with our contacts. We don't make any money out of all that. Our money is only made by teaching, right? Our money is not made by placement. So is the target person who already has interviews? Not necessarily. Really, anybody could come. There are many people who come who are not even looking for a job. Right? They're happy where they are, and they just want to learn this very well because how we explain things and how we have structured things is nowhere to be found in any college, even Stanford and MIT. Our current curriculum for algorithms is actually better than Stanford and MIT's curriculum. Right? So there are many people who know that and come for that as well. So no, that doesn't matter. It isn't like an eligibility criteria like that. So I hope that helps. Yeah. How do you prepare for system design interview for mobile roles, Android? There isn't too much preparation required. If you're an Android engineer, you know how to develop Android apps. You just have to talk to someone in the Android field, and we will make that happen. Right? If you're in the course, you will make that happen. Different course for junior. Yes. So we will. With the interview preparation is slightly different for managers, but interview preparation is regardless It's the same for everybody, regardless of seniority. It doesn't matter how senior or junior you are. Algorithms, design, soft skills, domain. Four things: algorithms, design, soft skills, domain. Just remember that. Right? For managers, you have to prepare for one more thing. Right? If you're a manager, your best preparation happens like that of an individual contributor. Right? Especially first line manager, second line manager. Directorial, yes, you have to focus more on your soft skills and your design skills. But otherwise, for manager, senior manager, coding, design, domain, and your management skills. So I hope that helps. I feel recruiters reaching out to new grads on LinkedIn is a rising trend. I frequently find recruiters ask for my information to contact my jobs instead of using LinkedIn for all communications. This is not very normalized. It feels like corporate security give out info like this, which are fake recruiters. Yeah, yes. I mean, you're right. I mean, I think there's a lot of spam online, and you need to be careful in giving out your phone numbers and email addresses. Obviously, you can take a Google Voice number as well, right? It's easy to block people. You can also take a different email address and such, right? As well. So, but do watch out. Right? There's a lot of spam online. Yeah. Do you see trends of freelance or gig type jobs continue in 2021? Yes, Raj, it will continue. I don't see it increasing it too much, but I do see it increasing at a steady pace, but will continue. Good question. Very good question, actually. How much level of coding skills is required for someone who has recently switched to developer role for operations for taking? You need to know how to code, and the benchmark is very simple. If I give you pseudocode in English, can you translate that into code? That much you need to know before coming in, but otherwise you're fine. So folks, I'm going a little bit fast. The more I'm answering, the more questions are coming. It just seems like the number is just not reducing. I'm certainly I won't be able to take all of them, but I'll try as much as I can for the next 5 minutes. We'll stop at 8 Pacific. Yeah. Please share all links you mentioned in your in the discussion. I'm not sure which links, Abhinash, you meant, but like the remote blog operations will send it here. Operations, if you Steph, especially if you're around, and if you can send the blog to the remote, the link to the remote blog, that'll be great as well. Looking for directorial roles, want to know how this course will help. We'll be happy to help. Just reach out to one of the program advisors as well. Like I said, design and soft skills will be important, and we'll connect you with directors at tier 1 companies to coach you as well. How do you see SWE dying trend continues to leadership position? Leadership position, not yet, RK, not yet. I think there's still a few years before that. Right. But again, it'll be some impact. Well, I would prefer somebody who has managed an ML team before to manage my ML team, right, versus a random other manager. But it's not going to be like that pronounced in 2021. We don't see that. Good question though. Good question. Questions: data science and some of you trying to change the SWE roles. Why? Yeah. Okay. I'll skip that. Why would you switch from data science to SWE? There are many reasons to switch. But anyway, I work in Facebook as data engineer. Interview process very different from SWE. Is it more suited for SWE? I'm looking to become a SWE engineer. If you become a software engineer, like I said, a software engineer role is dead. Right? You have to become specialized in something. Like you have to specifically say, I want to become a back-end engineer. Right? Regardless, I think Interview Kickstart cannot be used to switch your domain. Right? Interview Kickstart is solving a very different problem. If you are in a certain domain, you want to up-level your company, is when you can use Interview Kickstart. That will be most useful. Now, have people used the program to switch their domains? Yes, they have. Right? Is it how the program is designed? Is that a mainstream thing? No. Will it help? It will help you. But is that where our thinking process goes? Not right now. Right. So if you want to become a backend engineer and you realize that you're struggling with design questions and algorithmic questions, most welcome. Right. That we can do. But can we teach you backend engineering? Probably not. Right? No, we don't have a course for teaching backend engineering, teaching ML, teaching data engineering right now. Okay. I work both as an SRE and a cloud developer. How can I specialize myself while applying for FANG companies? You're already an SRE or a cloud developer, right? Just apply as an SRE or a cloud developer. Right? That's fine. Okay, that is specialization enough, right? And I don't know if you're asking between SRE and a cloud developer, just pick one, right? SRE is generally get paid more than cloud developer. Obviously, interview process is also harder. Or you could say, you know what, I'm not prepared for this difficult interview process. Let me just go as a cloud developer, and then within the company, I'll make the move eventually. That is also fine. Okay. Do QA automation engineers also have to go through the rigorous coding process or different? Not as rigorous as a SWE, certainly, but many companies ask algorithms questions. Sometimes they are basic, simple ones, easy ones, medium ones, but they do ask algorithm questions to automation engineers. Not as rigorous as a software engineer. So time frame to get ready for an interview at tier 1 really depends on where you are, how much time you have, what your domain is. Right? Anywhere from like a month to like a year, right? 2 years sometimes. Rare. 1 to 12 months is usually where it lies. Sorry, I know it's not a very useful answer, but really depends on where you are on this. And how do you know where you are? That is also a very difficult question to answer, right? Like no test actually tells you. What tells you where you are is actually when you start learning things, right? And so that's why Kickstart actually helps quite a bit. You go through the program, you realize where you are, you realize where everybody else is, right? And with that lens, when we also teach you soft skills, right? We also teach you resume writing and how do you talk to recruiters and all that. You ask those right questions and you realize where you are, how long it's going to take you. Many people assume that figuring out where you are is an easy problem. It's actually not. So, so is this program supported in Indian time zone? No, folks. Currently not. We are currently only for North America. Right? We're currently only doing it for North America, US, Canada. All time zones in US, Canada, but not outside of that. How to get into technical program manager role after working in technical role? Chirag, you getting into technical program manager role, like I said, the best switching, domain switching happens at your own company. Easiest, best switching happens at your own company. Just position yourself, right, for that. Right? Just talk to your manager, your senior manager, right, and such, and that eventually I want to move to this role. Right? And you don't need too many specific skills, right, for it. Like there's some project management skills you need to learn. And otherwise it's mostly behavioral stuff, right? How do you actually influence people without them having reporting to you, and you still continue to move projects? How do you get the visibility out of it and such? So those things, if they are already there in you, that you've seen, you're valued, right? So your managers will see you and give you an opportunity, right? Taking TPM roles are not that difficult in that sense. Don't try and change the company and the role together, right? I'll keep saying again and again, don't do that, right? Don't do those two things together. All right. How do you see trends of technical sales types of roles evolving? No idea, Raj, about technical sales roles. Not at all. Just coding roles is where we are. Please share blog link we'll talk with. So we already have, Nutan. Thoughts on OMSCS, Georgia Tech. OMSCS is a very good program, but it will not get you a damn job. Right? Do IK instead. Do Kickstart instead. You can do OMSCS if you want to do some sort of a specialization. You don't have a specialization, right? Fine. They also give you a fancy certificate with the name of Georgia Tech. The learning there is very, very self-driven, right? Extremely self-driven, and it doesn't get you a job. I mean, it looks nice and feels nice to have it. If that is what you value, go ahead. Otherwise, if you want to do a job-oriented program, that's IK. Do QA managers have to go through the same DS algo interview prep at tier 1 companies? Yes, unfortunately, that is correct. And you also have to, they will also ask you QA questions, right? But otherwise, yes. All right, folks, I think I'm done. My voice is also giving up a little bit. I know I have not been able to answer several of your questions. Again, nothing personally against you, just time constraint and trying to be efficient. I hope whatever we did was helpful. If you have more questions, feel free to reach out to us, talk to one of the program advisors, right, and such. We continue to do these sessions all the time, so look out for them, right, as well. And yeah, I'll see you in your subsequent sessions, right, as well. Thanks again for your time, and I hope you will all succeed in your careers. And if we can be part of it, please give us an opportunity. Yeah. Thank you. Bye bye.